Hey, everybody. Comments will appear here. It's Phyllis Curot, and it is our last office hours for the year 2019. And I'm wishing you all, before we even begin, I'm wishing you all a very joyous winter solstice. It is freezing cold, bitter cold here in New York, out on the east end of Long Island. So for sure it's winter. Anyway, I wanted to talk tonight. Initially, I was planning to do the usual questions and do a little bit of a winter solstice celebration. Um, and I found that I have really been thinking seriously and feeling deeply and being asked to, hey, Cora, hi. Hi, Lisa. Hi. Hi, Julia. Woo! From Melbourne, Australia. Oh gosh, I love Australia. Down under. Um, and Robin, hi, Robin from Ohio. Wonder, there are so many Wiccans and pagans in Ohio. Solstice blessings, solstice blessings. Hi. So what I was slowly saying as folks are coming on and saying hi is that I found that quite a number of folks, dear friends and people that I don't know, and myself, have all been contending with the energies of the season. Hi, Joanne. Hi. Hi from Vancouver, Canada. Boy, it must be cold up there, huh? So, we are approaching now the longest night and the darkest night and the coldest night. Hey there. Oh, look at this. I can see myself on my Facebook page here. I can see myself waving. Okay, it's getting very meta, so I'm just going to focus on what's in front of me. Hi, Grey Matter. Hi. From New South Wales, Australia. You know what? I'm going to wait to talk about this until everybody gets on because it's too much fun to say hi to everybody. Jane. Hi, Jane from Los Angeles. You guys have been having a lot of fires out there. I hope the weather's hanging in and you're gonna get a respite as we come to the end of the year. Hey, Robin again, solstice blessings to everyone. Yeah. And Anthony, hi, Anthony James Hennessy, also from Australia, New South Wales. Is it NSW is New South Wales? Gunnedah, am I pronouncing that right? Gosh. Um, and it's summer down there. Oh my goodness, it's summer solstice. You lucky people, you are really lucky. Hi, Jill, Vanessa from New Hampshire, and from Pittsburgh. Hey, everybody. I love all these hearts that are flying up over the screen. Aiden, South Wales, Australia, New South Wales, Australia. Summer solstice blessings. Melody, hi, Melody from Sterling, Illinois. Cold. Who else is here? I like the howdy doody. It's good. A few more people, then I'll start talking. I won't be ignoring you if you're coming on. I'm just going to start to focus on tonight's talk. I thought I would. Okay, good. So why don't I start? Okay. So part of the point of office hours. Hi, Sophia from San Antonio. Oh, that's where my agent, Cullen Stanley, is from San Antonio. Nice town. Okay. So everybody's been sending in a lot of terrific questions. Hey, Julie from Florida. And they're just such smart questions, really thoughtful questions. Hey, Leo Monopoly. Ciao. Ciao. A Italia. Come sta? Oh my goodness, it's probably like 2 o'clock in the morning there. All right. So thanks for staying up so late. So winter solstice. Winter solstice is the longest night, the coldest night, and it's on the 21st usually, sometimes the 20th, sometimes pushing into the 22nd. So we're right on target. And it'll be our last office hours of the year. And I was looking at the questions, but the questions that really got my attention this time around. Hi, Deborah from Kentucky. Hi, Helen from Panama City, Florida. I'm jealous. I hope it's nice and warm down there, or at least mild. Have been questions that deal with the darkest night, the long dark night of the soul. That very familiar expression. Probably even in Italy, right? And that's what I really wanted to talk about. We don't really, 2 a.m. Over on the other side of the pond. Hey, Cora, staying up late tonight. So this is the time of year when everybody is shopping and running around, and maybe not so much at summer solstice down in Australia, but you'll think of this 6 months from now, or go to the archive and listen in. It is long, it is cold, it is dark, and in the midst of it all, we are running around buying gifts for people, attempting to be quite cheerful, and lots of people are. Hi, Christine from Ontario, Canada. Hi there. It's kind of hard to keep my train of thought while everybody's coming in. So if I ignore you, forgive me. And the questions that started to come in were not just about the usual mechanics of how I do, winter solstice celebration. Hey, Mary Jo. But they were more serious questions. They were questions about how we deal with the darkness, how we deal with the longest night, how we deal with the dark night of the soul. People who are dealing with depression, people who are dealing with loss, people who are dealing with sorrow. My Aunt Vera, who was 102, just turned 102 at the end of November, just passed away a little over a week ago. And 102 is not long enough. She was an amazing and remarkable woman, and took the place of my mother. She was my mother's very best friend from the time the two of them were 16 years old and freshmen at Barnard College during the Depression. And they were lifelong friends. And my mother, who died more than 20 years ago, she stepped in many ways. Hey, Sarah. And I just lost her without having had the chance to see her shortly before her death. So that was very sorrowful. And it opened a space in my life that nobody else can fill. And a wise friend of mine once said that there are some losses. There's people that leave, right? Whether it's a breakup or a death, right? That there are people who leave, and they leave a hole in our hearts. And the hole never gets filled because those people were so special. They were so unique that there's nothing that can fill that space. But thanks, Jan. But the wisdom that she shared with me, that I have always treasured and that has stayed with me, is that in time, you will grow a larger heart around that hole. And I think that's really true. So this is the time of year when the wind tends to whistle through our hearts, when that darkness that surrounds us can also feel as if it's overwhelming and entering us. And certainly that is an experience that I'm familiar with. Let me just check to make sure that this is not a warning about technical stuff, because I have my marvelous Chris Fielding who keeps an eye out for me. Let's see. Look at my new glasses. They're not bad, right? Line in use. Okay. So I guess everything's all right. So half my family is Nordic, and the Norwegians, and they tend towards depression. And I think it's partly the long talk about long nights and long dark nights of the soul. When you go the further north you go, the longer the night stretches. And the fact of the matter is, that causes of depression can be many things. It can come from the loss of someone you love. It can come from an upheaval in your life where suddenly the things that were near and dear to you, the things you counted on, the things you relied upon, whether it's a job or school or the expectations that you had or the plans that you made or the people who were in your life, who were part of your life, whatever it was, it's suddenly things fall away, right? And you're, in a sense, in a kind of darkness. It can be that it is literally the environment in which you're living in, whether it is the cold, extra long nights of the absent midnight sun in northern climes where the sun never reaches, they say, and the cold comes from. It can be um, um, the conditions of life that seemingly are beyond your control, like illness, like poverty, like contending with arduous circumstances, a fire that wipes out an entire town, an avalanche that wipes out an entire town, a financial crisis that wipes out a life and a life savings. Um, it can be profoundly physical. And one of the things that I always urge people who are struggling with depression to consider and to look into uh, is the physical condition of the body. We tend, even those of us who practice an earth religion, an earth-based religion, a spirituality of embodied divinity, we still tend to think in the context of the broader culture, which is an Abrahamic culture, a culture of transcendence, right? A Hegelian culture, that it's the mind, and New Age spiritualities, that it is the mind that is controlling reality, the mind that controls the body, that has the influence on health. And all of those things are very true. And they are, in fact, a part of the magical tradition, right? Of how we think, how we meditate, how we alter consciousness, and how we are able then to affect the world in which we live, ourselves and the greater self of the world that we're participating in. But there is the opposite truth, which is the influence of the world in which we live, the bodies in which we live, on our souls, on our psyches, on our emotional states. And so when people start to deal with deep depression, that may not be connected to the obvious factors like a loss of a loved one or a loss of a job, external circumstances that can contribute to feelings of disorientation and depression. But it just comes upon you, right? And it's not even a seasonal disorder, right? What do they call it? SAD, the seasonal affect disorder, which affects lots and lots of women and is in fact part of what I'm talking about, that your physiology can have a profound impact on your psychology. We tend not to think that way. We tend to think the other way around. But the fact of the matter is that if in fact you're struggling with depression at this time of year or any time of year, you need to consider the health and the well-being of your physical body. What is your body telling you? And it can be as simple as turning on the light bulbs that have the full spectrum light and sitting with that light every day for the amount of time that you need so that you get the light into your body so that the brain's chemicals are stimulated and you will start to feel better. Go outside. They say one of the most important things, and I do this because, as I said, I'm slightly inclined. Hey, SB, yes, exercise. Thank you. We'll get to that. One of the things that I do is I go outside first thing in the morning and I breathe, I ground, and I make sure that I am outside getting sunlight because 10 minutes of sunlight in the morning begins to activate all of the chemicals that wake you up, that enliven the body and lift your mood. Exercise absolutely is an essential component of this. It literally creates endorphins, which nourishes the brain and stimulates your mood. Let's see what this says. Joy. I hope very much that I'll be able to access this later. It's my birthday and I need to be with my family right now, but I so want to tune into this. We're going to archive it. You'll be able to see it. It'll be on Facebook Live, on Facebook, on the Facebook page, and then it'll be archived and you'll be able to see it. Mwah! Blessed be. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Joy. Forest bathing. Wonderful. SB Mirta, hi. So let's talk about that. So getting outside is one of the most important things that you can begin to do. When I went through a very long period of depression, that came out as it was very much a result of going through menopause and things shifting and changing in my body and responding accordingly, right? I spent as much time as I could outside. And there was a point where I was truly despairing, because it wasn't just about me and the physiological changes that I was going through as a witch, as somebody who's extremely sensitive and full of empathy, which I'm sure describes most of you. I was in a state of profound grief over what was happening to the planet. And I felt completely inadequate. I felt overwhelmed by the damage that we had done and what was necessary to fix things, to set things right, to save the planet. And it was very much a child's response in many ways, right? That I thought it was all on me, that I thought I had to fix Mother Earth. And one day, sitting outside, forest bathing, in a sense, in my beautiful garden, which I was blessed to have, I heard the mother speaking to me. She was speaking to me really through the trees. And she basically said, "Are you done now? Because if you're going to continue like this, you'll be of no use to me or to the rest of the planet, to all the other creatures of the planet that you feel so much for." And I heard her and I looked around. It's like, there she was. And she said, "Breathe, just breathe." And I started to, I couldn't breathe. I hadn't breathed so long. But gradually, my breathing got healthier, fuller, slower, deeper. I was breathing, not surface breathing, not stress breathing, full, deep breathing. And as I was breathing, I heard the voice again. I heard the trees speaking to me, and they were very clear. And they expressed their love and their affection and their devotion and their presence in me and their appreciation for my breath. And I realized in that moment, as I was inhaling, I was receiving the gift of life from them. And as I was exhaling, I was returning the gift of life to them. And I sat there for at least an hour, simply breathing in a state of joy and connection and peace that I hadn't felt for a very long time. I could feel the depression lifting. I could feel the sorrow easing. And in its place, I felt presence. I felt peace. I felt alive again. And I realized that I was never alone. It wasn't an idea. It wasn't something that I had to aspire to. I didn't have to cast a circle or invoke the goddess. I didn't even have to draw down. All I had to do was breathe. In that moment, I awoke from the dark night of the soul. And I realized that I was never alone, that every breath I took connected me to the green things, and through the green things to the rest of the planet, to Mother Earth. And she was always there for me. And she was always there for me in ways that nourished me and sustained me and loved me. And in that moment of realizing that, the depression began to lift. The circumstances that had caused it were still present. The changes, the hormonal changes that were going on inside of my body, some of the aches and pains and difficulties that you deal with on the other side of menopause, like arthritis and thyroid and very physical things that begin to happen as Mother Nature starts to recycle you. Those real problems continued. And the real problems facing Mother Earth were the same that they had been before my awakening, my epiphany, the blessing that I had received, the breath blessing. But suddenly I realized I was no longer alone, right? And that in fact, everything that I needed to begin to contribute to changing, to healing, to making right the things that were wrong, that I was being given all the time, all the things that I needed to do, that I simply needed to pay attention to all of the marvels that kept me connected to the web of life, to the green things, to the animals, to Mother Earth. And as I began to look around, I began to see this very wise order in which I was in fact enmeshed, that I was participating in, but which I had completely, I can't say I'd forgotten it. I had simply never been taught it by the world in which I live, by the culture that we all live in. We aren't given the tools, the techniques, the perspective that we need in order to remain connected, to experience it fully. And I think that's where Wicca and shamanism and other spiritual practices are incredibly valuable to us. So when we start to feel the sorrows of the civilization in which we're participating, always participating, we are the creatures of our civilization and can't separate ourselves from it. When we confront the consequences, unintended and intended, of that civilization, that it is our moment in time to be part of, we need a toolkit. I had, to some extent, during that depression, I had stopped practicing. I was not practicing with the frequency, with the consistency, with the devotion that I had before I had entered this period of depression. And I began to practice again. And I found within the fundamental skills and techniques that I had been taught for 20 years, that I had taught over 20 years, that I'd learned over 3, 4, 5, 8 years, and that I had then gone on to teach others, that I came back to them. Just as I came back to the world, I came back with a new appreciation for their value, for their power, for the wisdom within them. But when I came back to them, I came back to them with a new appreciation on my part, but with a new approach to them, a simplified approach. It was no longer necessary for me to stand and gesture, to draw an invoking pentagram in order to welcome the spirits of air or to imagine them. Now all I have to do is breathe. Preferably outdoors, but I can do it anywhere. I can do it on a crowded subway train if I have to, right? And that's sometimes where you need to more than any place else. But even there in the bowels of Mother Earth, in this crazy contraption, crowded with other people, I know that in the moment that I am breathing, that I'm connected to this greater web of life that is breathing with me. So suddenly the language fell away or became even simpler than it had been in the past. And I had already gone through stages of simplifying my language. But now the language that I found myself using was less, shorter, clearer, and invariably now always includes expressions of gratitude. I've always been grateful, but now it's very clear to me that that's an integral part of the practice. Whatever practice I'm using is gratitude, is the expression of gratitude, the experience of gratitude, and awareness of what it is that I'm grateful for. That gratitude, that awareness, that awakening to relationship and to the nature of that relationship, but one of reciprocity, of giving and receiving, is a source of constant joy and renewal. And when I start to worry, and there's plenty to worry about, right? We're living in a culture of tremendous corruption and dishonesty, of greed and environmental stress that is becoming increasingly dangerous. We thought we had 12 years, then it was 11, and now the best scientists in the world are saying that we have 8 years. And it can be absolutely overwhelming. It can be terrifying. It can be utterly disempowering, and it can be deeply depressing to look at that and to think what can possibly be done by one person. But the practices, as simple as breathing, because the divine truly is just a breath away, immediately place you back into the broader context, into the context of life itself, to all of creation on this planet, which in fact embodies the divine. And though we can do damage, ultimately, the planet is wise and has the ability to heal. The plants, the animals, the life that we've been privileged to participate in, to be part of, will be damaged and may not recover for a very long time. And many of the species that we're blessed to share this time in this place with may be annihilated. And so we must do absolutely everything in our power to keep that from happening. Right? But it isn't only on us. Everything we need has been given to us. The wisdom of how to live in right relationship, of how to live intimately connected, interconnected, aware of our interdependence, of living in harmony and living in balance, taking no more than we need, giving back in kind, making the things that we require in order to live in ways that don't do damage and that then allow whatever has been made to be recycled, to be taken back into the earth, to be made over again. It's an entirely new framework for us, but the most ancient framework of creation. It is the way in which, in fact, nature works. So the template for what we need to overcome depression, whether it's physiological or psychological, whether it's cultural, right, is all around us. And because we too are nature, it is within us. It is a part of our nature. One of the marvelous things that you discover, forest bathing, right, is that if you go into nature, human nature becomes better. Go into nature and you begin to heal. The chemicals in your body literally change and shift. The endorphins that you need to overcome depression, to feel better, to feel alive, to feel joy, to feel connected, to feel empowered, right? To feel empathic and empowered, happen when you are out in nature. And of course, the wilder it is, the more empowering it is, the more healing it is. But it only requires a few steps out onto a balcony or into a garden or along a path, even through a city park, for those effects to start to transform you physically and emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Add to that, add to simply being in nature, these practices of enlightenment, and you begin to transform the dark night of the soul into an experience of encountering light, a little light within you, a tiny little light within you, which is seen by those in the world around you as you cultivate it. And if you can't find it within, then you find it in those who share the world with you, right? In those who care, like my Aunt Vera. She was the person that everybody went to when they were struggling, because she was the greatest cheerleader that any of us knew. She always encouraged. She always knew that things would work out for the best. And she had lived through the Depression, through the Second World War, through the McCarthy period. She had lived through recessions and depressions, and she'd lived the longest of all of the circle of friends, this wonderful circle of women at Barnard, this magical circle of women. She'd outlived them all, and yet her life was full of joy, and she always had expectations that whatever came, we would find within ourselves the little light within, that everything would be okay. And she was right. Everything always ultimately was okay. One of the secrets about changing from darkness to light, of changing a fate that one foresees, One of the things that witches do, right? That we look to see, and especially if we're depressed, we try to look to see what does the future hold, to find the reassurance that we need, to find the path that will lead us out of darkness and back into life, back into joy. And one of the things that you learn as a witch is that you cannot control everything, right? Contrary to sort of this new age idea that you're in charge and controlling everything. Witches understand you're a single strand in a web. You cannot control the web, but you can control how you participate in it, right? You can control how you respond to the circumstances of life that you meet, that you are met with. That you have power over. And that is where you begin to find the magic to heal within yourself and to begin to heal the world immediately around you and to receive the healing that is a natural part and a natural gift of the world in which we live. It is a healing world. It is a world full of love. The template that we participate in, that we've been blind to because of the world in which we live, which has not seen it. The gift of practicing an earth religion is that you begin to see with these simple practices, just by spending time in nature, by breathing, by grounding, by the way in which you work with the elements and receive their blessings, you begin to see that the entire template, the cosmic blueprint of creation that you're privileged to be participating in, is entirely about the sustenance, the creation, and the sustenance and the maintenance of life. That's nature's secret magic. That all things, when taking care of themselves, are in fact making the world a better place for life. That's the hum. That's the song of creation. That's the spark that relights the light within you. That web encircles you, it nourishes you, it heals you, it brings you back to life. One of the glorious things about earth religions, about Wicca, witchcraft, about pagan traditions, is this understanding that nature is cyclical, right? So this is the dark time of the year, winter solstice for those of us up north here, which you'll experience down south, enjoying summer solstice, and down under, you'll have your winter solstice. There's the cycle itself. It's constantly changing. Life is constantly changing. It's constantly moving. One thing is becoming another, always. And anything that dies is always reborn, including us and our individual lives. The experiences that witches have is one of, in fact, of reincarnation. There is a continuous energy that is moving through time and space, constantly shifting its shape. That's what witches do. We're shapeshifters, constantly changing. The forms of life are constantly changing, but the spirit that animates them remains. And that's the light that dies and is reborn, dies and is reborn, dies and is reborn. It exists within the womb of the mother, the infinite potential of the cosmos. And that womb, that dark womb, even that space of darkness, that sense of disorientation, right? Of nothingness, of absence, is in fact a place of dreaming. When I look back on that long period that I went through of depression, and I think, oh my God, I lost so much time. I mean, I was on the board of the Parliament of the World's Religions, and I organized the Women's Assembly, which was historic, and I won awards, and all kinds of amazing, magical things happened, and yet I felt as if I was in the dark night of the soul. And it wasn't until the mother spoke to me and said, breathe. And I breathed, and I realized that that breath was connecting me to all of the natural world. Exhaling, giving, inhaling, receiving, that every single breath I took was connecting me And suddenly the well, that empty space within, began to fill. And I realized, because I looked around me and I saw that there are always dark nights, long, cold, dark spaces where the earth rests, where she slumbers, and nothing seems to grow. But the seeds are buried deep within. The seeds of new life, the little spark of light, is buried within you. And what you need to light it and then to nourish it is all around you. All you need to do is breathe. Knowing that the seasons change and that winter is always followed by spring for as long as we are alive. Spring will follow winter, and summer will follow spring and fall, and then winter will return again. And the reasons to be sorrowful, and the reasons to grieve, and the reasons to be depressed will come, whether it's the changing of hormones or the loss of someone that you love, or the sudden change, the harsh change of circumstance that rips from us the things that we love, the comfort that we've created for ourselves, the sense of safety or security. Or our hormones change, or we're ill, and there's some imbalance that requires healing and care and love, or requires our full attention to being as present as possible for the time that we have. One of the lessons of aging, you wake up and you realize that you don't have an endless amount of time, and so you must be fully present. There is a blessing in the dark. It gives you an appreciation for the light. It gives you time to rest, to reflect, to find a new dream, to discover the thing that is most important, that survives whatever has been removed, right? The harvest strips everything away, but it leaves, it's a process, a necessary process that leaves a seed. And in the seed is the sun. The sun has gone into the seed. The seed holds that energy within, and it hides within the earth during the winter. It's invisible. You don't know it's there. And then everything shifts. The wheel of life shifts. The seasons shift. The earth moves towards the sun. It moves towards something external, something extraordinary that warms us. And in the New Age relies always upon the inner life. One of the great blessings I think that we have as practitioners of an earth religion that sees the divine as embodied is that we're present within this greater fabric of life, of creation, which is warming us, which is nourishing us, which is healing us, which is offering its breath of life as our breath of life, and which is welcoming and receiving ours. You're never alone. Go outside. Breathe. Take your time. First, it's imagination, but very quickly, it's an experience. And you'll feel the plants, even in the winter, the conifers will respond. You'll feel them. The wind rustles them. There's no wind, and they move. And you'll feel them speaking with you. You'll feel their energy and their messages coming into your body and flowing through you with the life-giving breath that they create. And you'll exhale and realize there's no waste. There is no waste in nature. In a very real sense, you live to create the carbon dioxide that the green things need in order to live, just as they live, in a sense, to create the oxygen that you need. It's the byproduct of their photosynthesis. It's what they exhale and that we need. We are in an intimate, interconnected, interdependent relationship, exchanging the breath of life. Go outside and breathe. Ground. Put your back up against a tree and feel the roughness of the bark. First, ask. I say that, go outside, because I'm thinking, you can't see it because it's dark, but in the center of my yard is this great oak tree, which is one of the reasons when I saw this place, I knew it was my home. You hug, you ask if it will work with you. You feel an attraction to a tree and you ask. They are so generous, and the plant world is so giving and so kind by and large and so generous. Yes, they compete, as all living things do. They compete with each other and with other life forms for what they need. But truly, their nature is so kind and so giving. And they'll work with you. And if you stand or sit, put your back against the bark after you've laid hands on it, and put your back and send roots down. Ask it to work with you and send roots down through the base of your spine and into the earth. And let it teach you. Work with it. Feel how time slows. One of the greatest gifts, I think, of recovering from illness, from depression, from sadness, from sorrow, is beginning to see how time moves differently. We're human beings, and we move at a certain speed, a certain tempo. We have an average of a certain number of years on this planet, 78, 82 years approximately. I believe it's approximately 1 billion heartbeats. All living things live for different lengths of time, but have approximately 1 billion heartbeats. Extraordinary, right? So a hummingbird that lives for a short amount of time has actually 1 billion heartbeats. My dog, who will live 15, 16, 17 years, I hope, will have approximately 1 billion heartbeats. I hope I'll live to be 102 like my aunt, approximately 1 billion heartbeats. So time is somewhat different, and time for plants is very different. I find that to be enormously therapeutic in dealing with the kinds of depression that people often experience, because one of the consequences of depression is an inability to engage and to be present in life, and time has this strange sense of sort of dragging out and overwhelming you. But when you work with the trees, who have a very different, a very slowed sense of time, it begins to shift your own perception of time. And you begin to see how there is life in that slowed frame. And then you begin to breathe and you come back into a human frame, and energy begins to move through you in a tempo that is appropriate for human life, right? But the tree has given you the blessing, the power, the life force within this longer stretched time. That's very, very helpful. Moving out of depression and beginning to move the energies. It's a gift that you can take from outside in and begin to transform and catalyze your own energy, your own pulse, your own rhythm, the energy within you, the light within you. There's another very simple practice that I think is incredibly healing. There are many things with herbs and plants that are healing. But we'll save those probably for spring if people want to do that. But water, it's interesting to do this at winter solstice when we think much less about water. snow. But one of the things that I began to realize in this reawakening and return to practicing is that we tend to use elements. We use the air, we use the herbs, we use the earth, we use the tree, we use water for our magic. And I still use that vocabulary because that was my training for so many years and my habit for so many years. I'm much more mindful now, even though I still slip back into that old habit. But I'm much more mindful now of working with the tree, of working with the earth, of asking permission first and expressing gratitude afterwards, and of working with air and fire and water rather than using. And the part of this whole shift in perspective that came about through realizing that the divine was a breath away was that the right relationship with the world in which I was embedded was not one of using, well, of course we're going to fall back into that, but of working with, of being in right relationship, of being in harmony, of being in a balanced relationship, of giving and receiving, of taking no more than is needed and giving back so that there is always enough. And working with the elements and working with nature and realizing that there's this reciprocal exchange of energies going on, which sustains life and heals and does all these remarkable, gives you all of these remarkable blessings and gifts. That one of the things that we have a tendency to do is, this is what I was taught, exhale. And you see this everywhere. Exhale your tension, exhale the garbage, exhale the negativity, exhale, or put it into the water, wash your hands and purify and cleanse and put the garbage in the water and let the waters carry it away. Well, water is cleansing. It's one of its glorious gifts that we wash in it. But I began to realize that water holds and carries everything we put in it. Water is one of its blessings is that it's like a messenger. And so if you pray over water, it will carry your prayers to the next person who touches, washes, drinks the water. I began to realize that while it's acceptable to use water for washing and cleaning, to work with water for cleaning and purification, that there is a better way of working with it, especially magically, and when you're dealing with things like sorrow and grief and depression and the things that you want to cleanse from your body. The earth will recycle all of the organic and natural compounds that are in it. That's how it works, because there is no waste. One thing becomes another in the mother. And so things are constantly being changed and transformed. And things that seem like shit, in fact, is fertilizer for flowers. It contains all these organic compounds that makes things grow. So water, when you need cleansing, purification, when you're contending with sorrow, loss, depression, anxiety, worry, fear, all these difficult, potentially toxic emotions, rather than putting them into the water, what water taught me was to bring water into yourself. So you take the water, I like a clear glass, you thank it for the blessings of life that it gives you and for its purity that it is offering to you. And I frequently will now put love along with my gratitude into the water, and I drink it. And I remain very present with it, feeling it move down past my heart and into my stomach, and then it will pass the rest of the way through my body. And I take time with it, and I realize the blessing I'm receiving, that I've brought the purity of the water into myself as a gift from it, and it is moving through me, blessing me as it moves through my body. It is blessing me with it is giving me the gift, the blessing of its purity. And it moves through me, and it's cleansing me in this very organic and natural way. And when it leaves my body, it will leave my body carrying the so-called waste, right, of what was inside of me through the metabolism of my body, right, that it'll carry it away and out where Mother Earth has the ability, if we do not overwhelm her, and if we participate, in cleansing our waste, if we participate in this process, take responsibility for it, figure out how we can best help in its recycling, right? It returns to her, and she's able to work with the nutrients and the various things that are in it. Of course, the drugs that move through us and things like that are a problem. So that's where we have to participate and take responsibility in how we clean our own waste, which is not waste, which is in fact basic ingredients that the earth will use to make something new, to make new life. Working with the elements in that way, with air and breath, and fire, in warmth and inspiration, and above all, joy, water, for this blessing of purification that takes place within, which is so remarkable and effective. And it's natural. It's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And of working with the earth itself and receiving sustenance and healing in food and medicine, you begin to realize that all of our relationships have this potential for sustenance, for healing, for intimacy, for relationships. And one of the most important things, I think, in moving out of grief and despair and depression and a sense of powerlessness is to shift your perspective. That was the old definition of magic. It's the art of changing consciousness at will. That you cannot change or control all of the circumstances, but you can change your fate by changing how you respond, by changing your relationship with the world around you. So the burden is not entirely on you. You have a role, you have a responsibility, you have work to do, determining where does it come from? Is it physiological? Does it have to do with hormones? Is it my diet? Is there some illness that needs to be repaired? Are there relationships that I need to fix? What do I have to do to begin to live the life that I need? How do I begin to rebuild? How do I come back to life? What is the path before me? And you use the skills, you use divination, and you use meditation, and you use ecstatic practices like chanting and casting circle and invoking the divine, and above all, working with nature. It's not all on you. You are never alone. There is a web of life that you are intimately interconnected with and interdependent with, that depends upon you. And that realization, they always used to say, if you're depressed, do something nice for someone else. If you're depressed, do something else for Mother Earth, because she is constantly doing things for you. Every second that you're here, she is blessing you and nourishing you and sustaining you and giving you the things that you need to live. When you shift your perspective, 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 when you shift your persp when you make the magic of that enlightened consciousness, that you are never alone, that you are within this incredibly loving and generous and healing network of life, that little light within you flares up. That little seed that holds the light within you, that little seed of new life cracks open and starts to grow. And you start to grow. And you grow in good company. You're growing in the company of all the other creatures that you share this planet with the plants and the animals and the other people. And it's a world that is full of beauty and wisdom and joy. And the wheel always turns. And the dark night of the soul becomes the longest day, the warmest day, the longest day, the day full of rejoicing, full of growth and beauty and harmony. It's always there. It's always happening somewhere. If it's not in the north, it's happening in the south. The wheel is always turning. And in the center is this ability that you have to know that you are part of this intricate and intimate and divine web of life that has a wisdom beyond measure, a wisdom that is entirely about healing and sustaining and loving and creating life. And that is who you are. You are part of that. So my advice, outside, exercise, practices, right? Companionship with others who know, reach out to those who love you because they love you just the way you are, just the way you are, warts and all, they love you. And knowing that the cycle is constantly changing. Feelings aren't facts. Right? And all you need to control is your own response to the situation that you're in. And the way that you can respond is by connecting yourself to the sacred web that loves and nourishes and sustains you. So, here we go. To all of the bright lights that are shining out there, the little lights within that need to be acknowledged, that need the warmth of the sun to help the casing crack open. It's there. It's coming. You are never without it. It's always there for you. And when we put all these little lights together, all of us, and I hope, those of you who are still with me will light a candle at home. When we put all these little lights together, it makes a great light. And it's enough light to enlighten the world, to warm it, and I sincerely believe to help each of us bring ourselves back to life and bring this planet back to life. So I wish you all a very, very beautiful, long, cold, dark night in which you find and light that beautiful flame within you and offer it in some way, however you wish, but in some way, offer it to the world because the world needs it. It needs you. You wouldn't be here if you weren't meant to be. And you wouldn't be the light that you are if your light wasn't needed. So on this winter solstice, I thank you because I need you. You are a light in my life. You are an inspiration. Many of you, even those of you I don't know, are an inspiration for me. You are a light that lights the way forward in a dark world. And I'm very grateful for you. And I know it's the light that can make the difference. So I wish you all a glorious, glorious winter solstice. And for those of you enjoying that gorgeous warm sun, I wish you a joyous, well, that goes without saying, a gorgeous summer solstice. Have a wonderful new year. I'll see you on the other side. Blessed be everybody. Happy solstice. Bye.